Lines connect a family. Lines connect us all each day of our lives. We touch lines, we feel lines, and we're guided by lines. And these same lines often give us meaning in our lives to represent direction, pain, joy, and even an ending to our being. Lines are purposeful, flowing, explaining, and often at times defining. The common theme through my presentation is how lines work interactively to guide the mind and the eye visually the direction to either relay a message or to bring about some type of emotional response or meaning. And you can come away from after viewing a graphics with good use of lines with a feeling. You can be happy, sad. It can there again give you a directional device. But all these basically through the theme of the 8 graphics will illustrate the use of line and how its directional purposes can stimulate the mind and also be purposeful in directing the mind. In this graphic by Cecilia Wright, we can see how a line can guide our minds through a path of imagination, and in the end, basically a clear communicated message. Here, the flowing lines represent pasta. Playfully, they inform us what's inside the eatery, basically. The depth of these lines, there, if you look at them, they're highlighted by the use of darker colors on the door frames, yet the gray shades around the frames themselves kind of give us an overall relaxed feeling. They're again all serving to direct our eyes in a linear direction back to the establishment's name. There in the upper left-hand corner in the red part, again it speaks to our minds. It communicates what's in the eatery. It's an Italian restaurant. It's fun. It has pasta. The flowing lines there again are communicating more than just saying, this is a signed message. It just kind of adds to the message to say this is kind of an emotional feeling you'll have by visiting this type of establishment. We're starting to see how the theme of the use of lines are kind of there again, are very directional in their intent. Here, the Get Wired graphic supplied by Jamil, it kind of puts our minds in a non-static sense of energy, like the free-flowing motion of the lines kind of highlights their fluorescent colors and kind of gets our attention, and then it moves our thoughts to the end of the message. What is it saying? Well, it's a coffee house, Java-laced energy with like a flowing spirit of adventure, if you will. Notice the colors of the lines, how they intertwine and interwrap, almost like they're endlessly just circling round and round and round. There again, the flow of those lines give you that sense of energy. It's communicating a sense of continuation, and then the boldness of the type basically highlights those same bold lines. The white bold type basically is a negative color, so it kind of plays off of those bold multi-fluorescent lines to give you the final message basically that says get wired here. This is a place where you can get coffee, where it's high energy, where the level is really high, and the lined use here basically is there again, as in the first graphics, was just it travels, allows your mind to travel through each line and then brings you to a final message at the end to say, what is the company? What is this message? And it's really a good representation of a logo spelling out what is inside a building, basically without saying anything. In this next graphic, Paige is images of her tattoo. It serves multi-purposes, I felt. I think it touches our hearts, our minds, and our souls as the lines of the tattoo. They're non-linear, almost native in circular motions, into like a Native American journey in a circle versus just one static line from a start to an end. The lines represent almost openness to me, and like a sense of freedom, again circular back to our souls and our very existence of a being on this earth. I know in Paige's story we kind of learn of pain and loss of someone special in her life, and I think the tattoo offers like lines of peace and unity, almost saying to the soul, you're not alone, I'm here. The use of lines in this graphic tend to connect us to the world we live in. In essence, it's all around us, that all that was, they'll always be there, that each other are bound by this circular linear or circular use of a line where it's not closed off and ending. It's almost like continuous, again, like the Java graphics in a strange contrasting way. They're both non-conforming lines that just keep flowing and flowing and flowing. I think both have an essence of real positive energy and openness almost, that allows you to kind of open your mind, view the graphics, and not close off and feel real static. Again, it kind of like emanates a feeling of peace, almost an inner being. There again, just to look at how thick the black, and it's like a paint stroke of a paintbrush that kind of swirls around. Even though it's a tattoo, it still has like a free essence to it, to where it almost looks like a wave, and you just get this kind of a soothing feeling when your eye traces the circular motion of the tattoo on her finger. It just has almost like a soothing feel to it. And there again, it's speaking to our minds. It's communicating a message to her personally, but to each one of us that views this tattoo, we could come away really with another message or another feeling emotionally. And it's interesting how line used in context of communicating emotion versus just a set message of a typeface on a sign or something. In this case, there is no wording. It's really open to each person's how they want to interpret it, and what they come across is almost like a piece of fine art. Everyone may have a different definition, but I think everyone could agree that it has like a flowing, circular, open motion to it. And that's what I found really attractive about this use of line here. On this next graphic, Tanya presents us with a work I think many of us have probably seen over the years, and it kind of draws us into how incredible the use of lines can be in exploring dimension, depth, maybe coming off of the page like it's lifelike, the use of the shadowing around the lines, the thickness used, and also the medium of a pencil being used. It softens our mental pictures, and in this process it kind of allows our minds to kind of deeply get lost into the drawing as we stare at it. It's harmonious, and it's interesting the way it lets our minds just travel through each hand, from one hand to the other hand. There again, like talked earlier about pages, it seems to be a connecting variable to all these lines on several of the graphics, to where it kind of brings us almost back to a soulful purpose of continuation. Nothing seems to end in the presentation of my use of lines, that it almost seems like every drawing opens our minds and allows us to go deeper and deeper into the graphic. And I thought that was interesting how this one connects to the graphic that I had showed earlier. Lisa Howard's tribal dragon tattoo also it kind of illustrates how motion can be present in the use of lines. Just as the other graphics had connected us in our minds and its usage, this work kind of lets our eyes again travel down the boldness. If you'll notice, each stroke is bold, and it allows your mind to just travel into the end. Basically, it gives you a sense that the dragon is displaying some type of strength, a continual presence, if you will, in this world. And then the white background plays off of that graphic to make it even a bolder statement that says, "Here I am, I'm strong, I'm present in this world." And there again, the flowingness of the lines, it just continues. If you look at the tail, it comes down, it goes to basically the wings, to the back, to the head, which circles around to the foot. It's like almost like a winding road down a mountain, where your mind mentally, as you're working your way through the graphic, you don't even realize it at times. It just gives you a pleasant feel the way your eye travels, and it's almost peaceful in a sense. But yet here we have this bold dragon that's saying, "Here I am and I'm strong," but yet we almost can find some type of calmness in it. There again, to continue that line process of one upper part of the drawing down to the bottom, or from the left to the right. There is just no stopping point. Like all the other graphics we've looked at, the same thing was happening. There is no end point. It's almost like saying this just goes on, and it's almost like a freedom type of graphics illustration. But the boldness here, the lines to me really stood out and play off of that white background so much that it really it made a statement of strength. In this next graphic, Catherine kind of reminds us by the usage of the lines that playfulness can be had, that in a communication process, if you look at the drawing, each line is similar in width and in scale, and there again it kind of mentally brings a feeling of unity. That all the objects, whether it be a tennis ball, the baseball, there's a type of unity there as they're making their way through the illustration. And in the background, it was done skillfully with a lighter gray to where it's the secondary images to those, say the golf ball is a golf club, to the tennis ball is a tennis racket, but they're shaded lightly in the background to where it allows the graphics and the lines with their equal boldness to stand out, to say this is the main thought process of the graphics, but yet it's there again, that feeling of continuity, unity, that there's a continual motion. If you look at the little background of like a smoke kind of thing, you can see that's a feeling of movement. They're making their way, and it's a positive feeling. They're coming towards you into the foreground, and because of the bold, there again, continuous kind of, all the lines are equal in size. It's almost like a harmonious feeling. Everything is working together with the graphics. There's not one item there that's more dominant than the other, and that speaks back to what I was saying about the unity of the graphics. Mentally in your mind plays up a message that says, this is fun. It says a little lighthearted, but yet it's also unified in its meaning. In this next graphic, Christopher Edwards used a more kind of like a nostalgic line in our minds mentally as you view the thinness of some lines and the boldness of, say, the lines in the upper left-hand corner for the text. You start traveling backwards in time. I think the message is, again, it's a simple message, some maybe of how things used to be. And there again, the colors speak of fun, red lines, and they're kind of like got a fun typeface to it, while the background lines are softened a bit, and they're well blended to where they kind of give the graphics of fun to the left a little more boldness, so that your mind and your eye is drawn to that left part, and by the time you get over to the right side of the graphic, you're feeling fun. You're feeling kind of what their purpose was. Florida, it's fun, Sunshine State, vacation. Everybody knows that resonates with having fun and being relaxed. But it also speaks to the simple use of the lines. How, if you look at the little drawings of the kids on the beach and the backs of their bathing suits, they're very thin lines, just single strokes, to where they didn't want to put a lot of work into that area. It's just a simple one stroke to where it didn't take away from the simplicity of the overall emotional feel that as a viewer, an audience, that we're feeling as we look at this card. They don't want you to ever feel a feeling of stress. It's almost like everything there, again, the lines all flow together. They're relaxed feel. The background colors are muted. The color of the bathing suit and the Florida line graphics stands out to where it resonates to say, again, Florida vacation, basically. And it also kind of has a timestamp feel to it because of the use being more of the use from the 50s, the line treatments. It gives you a time stamp of feel, basically, that says, we're going back in time. You visit today, you can kind of feel that same emotional feelings that we did when times were simpler, if you will. In this final illustration of line graphics and how they're threaded through all these other illustrations is from Kristen, it's kind of a basic, simplistic message, but it goes to show also how lines, when again, like the postcard, is done simple enough without distractions, it can communicate a message. And in this case, if you look to the left of the illustration, it has a really basic yellow background that makes the lines of the medicine emblem stand out there in the real thin purple line, and you get a feel immediately. Even if you were to just view that one circled area, you would know this is a pharmacy. This is where I can get pharmaceuticals. And then to the right of that, the graphics and the use of lines are done in a toned down purple to where it's a soothing feeling that you kind of gain a sense of confidence in the establishment, that it's a pharmacy. You can trust them. There again, it's communicating a psychological message by the use of those toned down lines. And there again, how the logo goes from the symbol itself into a step to the right where it goes into a visual of actually what the company's name is, or the retail store's name is. And it offers an interesting breakup so that it's easier to read with the yellow bar down the center is an interesting treatment of line usage that adds a certain level of interest, I think, to the graphics. And there again, it shares a lot of the same traits that the other graphics has, in that it is a flowing directional message that communicates a certain direction. I think you come away having a signified message after looking at each one of these graphics. In closing, I feel the common thread of my 8 graphics basically was a kind of like an endless meaning of direction. Here I'll state it as, lines can have several meanings: directions, feelings, representation of life, and a mental journey. So emotionally, as we view graphics in our lives, and sometimes we're not even aware of it, it makes us think certain things. It can make us have a closed thought. It can make us have an open thought. It can make us feel love. It can make us feel anger. It can make us, just from a sense of a source of a resource, to say this is directional. This is how you get to this location. And this line in a graphic communicates that. They're all done with different intended meanings, but in my presentation of 8 graphics, it was the continuation of like a more of a flow, like a circular, where it's nonstop, where it's kind of open-ended, where each graphic had a flowing feeling to it, to where you never felt like you just were like stopped in the beginning and it was over. It was almost like it opened your mind. With the use of color and the muted tones and stuff, it kind of there again relaxed your senses as you went through the presentations. And I thought the common theme there again was yet there was a unity to it, but yet an openness and a flowing feeling through each one of these.